the whole theatrical section,
the countdown, everything. Like
I saw it all. I was just I was on the phone with the.
You got this. It didn't even record. This is what FSU people do.
This is what we do, huh?
Right.
Well, first and foremost, I like to apologize to any. Well, it's weird to apologize for something you guys actually never heard as the audience. But recently, we recorded an impromptu episode based solely on the student loan cancellation conversation. It was fresh and hot off the press. I was making a lot of great jokes, but I think I was a little bit off the cuff as well. But during that time, it turns out we didn't record none of it. So if I were to repeat some of these jokes, it's going to be brand new all over again. It's what it is. I do apologize. When I make a mistake, I own up to it. So that's the way it is. Anybody want to do the intro?
It was... we gave you enough talk about that for last week.
You were there. All of y'all were there, and nobody saw it too. So it's like a personal thing.
So like, it never happened, right?
It never happened.
Happened.
What's funny is that a lot of great podcasters, I've heard them, make these type of mistakes before. Even like Journey to Launch was one I listened to all the time. She made that mistake maybe like twice, where she recorded with guests and almost like she lost the episode or just whatever, or paychecks and balance at the time when they were doing episodes. So it's just something that goes on. And for the audience that don't know, sometimes as podcasters, we mess up. We don't get the recording right. And it's a lot of work on the back end to get you some great episodes. And we hope that this episode itself is very beneficial for you, especially as we find out a little bit more about the student loan cancellation that was announced by Joe Robinette Biden, Jr., his entire name, because that's my boy now. That's my dude. I've always voted for Joe. I've always been
so
Team
you're in
Joe.
the bandwagon.
Bandwagon all day. Keep it on fleek, my boys. No lie, I voted for him last time. That's also a lie, but still. So basically on Wednesday, we did find out about the student loan cancellations and all the different technicalities within it, and people were nuts. People at Atlanta was on the website crashing it all day, trying to get information. That thing, you're making a face, but that's a whole group like you. Y'all was just clicking. Am I qualified?
I knew I was qualified too.
And I know, so that's the funny part. Yeah, I know you qualified. You just get on clicking anyways. I'm gonna crash.
You just want to confirm.
Like, double check. But the news came fairly late into the season. This is probably one of the, there's a couple of things that happened. At the very beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, there was a student loan forgiveness or student loan forbearance announced. And that extended ever since then for a grand total of 8 times. So it's been extended, the 7 times prior to this current time, which is the 8th time, where it's been extended for a total of 33 months. That means over the course of 33 months, federal student loans has been on pause. The interest, which is the biggest part, has also been on pause, which is a great opportunity for people to recalibrate, survive through the pandemic, make sure that they're paying down their debt, or making sure that they're fed, stock, provision. And other people also took the opportunity with additional cash to really invest. So there's been a grand amount of opportunities there that the government overall, it's not just a Republican government, the Democratic government, it's just the government itself that had 2-term presidents that were in there from 2 different parties. It didn't really matter. They're just helping out the American people. And we appreciate that on so many levels. For a lot of people, this is a welcome reprieve. This is additional support in a time of high interest payments or high inflation. High prices, gas is going up and down as crazy as it can be. Energy costs, utility costs are slated to go up. So there's a lot of people struggling through this process. And this is a great opportunity for our government to flex its muscle and really support its citizens. On top of that, there's other pieces and provisions that we're going to be discussing. And that's my intro for now. Woo. It's recording, right? It's still recording?
Yeah, we got it. We got it.
Still recording.
We got this.
Locked in here. I'm looking at something that there's a few things that has come up from the time we recorded. And there's been a lot of, like Lawrence mentioned, I think last time you even brought up a tweet that was discussed in terms of just like one of the ladies that did a really good job of breaking down what were the requirements and all the stuff that happened. And then of course the angry people, there's been a lot of people that's angry. TikTok and Twitter has been going crazy because people feel as if like, okay, I got to pay for Sally's and Tom's debt. I don't want to pay it. This is that and a third. Can you guys talk a little bit about what does it mean when, I think last time we talked about this, that this debt is forgiven? Did it just disappear? And is it costing taxpayers for real? Like what's really going on with all of that?
You want to take it, Alanta, or you want me to just kind of roll through the thoughts and idea and all the details?
Yeah, you can roll through with the thoughts and ideas, because people are definitely pushing back, and they think or assume that it will increase inflation due to the fact that people have more debt release. Because like you mentioned earlier in the episode, this is directly impacting, I think, 60% of people who qualify, especially who receive Pell Grants in their collegiate years. So it's directly impacting a lot of people. So let's say you had less than 15 grand left or less than 20,000, that will completely just scrape off every remaining debt that you do have. So that's a life-changing factor for a lot of people, of the extra money and the cash flow that you have. But on the back end, like you were mentioning, Lovely, people are really, reluctant about this, or they're thinking the taxes, there's always a payback somewhere, the inflation is going to increase. And you mentioned it as well, like, where is this money, coming from? And great point that you mentioned on our last non-recorded podcast is the money has been spent already. So talk about that a little bit more, Lawrence.
Yeah, okay. First and foremost, the money has been spent already. It's one of those things that's easier said than, or explained in a long-term sense than just like, hey, it's going to cost taxpayers, so on and so forth. So CNBC, just shortly afterwards, just like every other media company, is just pushing this information because it's going to get a lot of clicks. People, there's eyeballs, there's over 20 million Americans just like truly impacted by this, or even basically all Americans are watching to see, because they want to know how they can actually benefit from it. So overall, I think one of the people that did a great job of posting this information and went viral with it, her name is Nairobi. I guess it says /Tech for Abolition. So at Tech for Abolition, so it's TECH for Abolition on Twitter. She dropped it on August 24th around midday when we found out about this entire cancellation. She broke down all the different pieces, because this student loan cancellation forgiveness plan is actually in 3 parts. It's 3 exact parts. So the first part is the actual final extension of the student loan repayment pause, which has been extended all the way up to December 31st, 2022. So it should be resuming for a lot of people as of January 2023. So if you have your payment January 1st, January 2nd, don't act brand new, all right? Let's stop with the foolishness. They doubled down on it. Your boy, Joseph Wobinet Biden said it straight up. This is the last time. Stop playing with me. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, he ain't having none of that. If you've seen it lately, the White House Twitter has been on the whole, they've been taking no prisoners.
Yeah.
They coming in for you.
Is that you? Is that you?
They come in for, yeah.
Oh, this is you?
Like, if you mad about this entire thing, hey, you had some PPP loan, they're gonna show you out. They got the numbers, they got the information.
And they've been quiet since.
Oh,
they've been quiet because they said
they've been laying low. But the way that Biden turned after the whole press conference, he turned around. He's like, "Oh, you want some of this? Let's go, man. Have a whole staff. Let's do it." So that's the first thing. We're making sure that the payment pauses are not going to resume until January 2023. That's amazing. That's 33 months of debt relief. The second part, which is the targeted relief for low to mid income families who have been affected, or even had who unduly had to pick up a lot of student loan debt in order for them to get in positions. So like first generation like us, a lot of us didn't have families that had a lot of money at all, if not anything at all. So therefore we qualify for Pell Grants. We had to take on student loans, or hopefully got some grants or scholarships. But a lot of us had the student loans, so majority of those people will be benefited from that, and I'll talk about that more in detail. And finally, they talked about this the federal student loan system or apparatus that consists of the income-based repayment plan, the IBRs, or as well as the PSLF, which is Public Student Loan Forgiveness. All of that is being retrofitted, revamped, made simpler to really ensure that a lot of people either get their debt completely paid off at some point earlier, and or to make sure that people that have been in service industry, being either teachers, lawyers, doctors, police people, there's a lot of people in the service that really support us all. They're making sure that they're also part of the PSLF so they can get their student loans canceled out and so on and so forth. So we're benefiting them. So this should make us as a country more competitive. It should make, hopefully push a lot of people to purchase new homes, get started with their families, and get really engaged in the process of becoming just adults. Because a lot of people are stuck in the idea of like, hey, I have my student loans, I can't do anything else, I could just sit here and just wait. So this has been a great opportunity. To Lovely's question, a lot of people are saying that, hey, this will increase inflation and so on and so forth. And to some point, it is true-ish, but not entirely. Originally, the money that has been taken out for loans, I've already been dished out. Years ago, it's already happened. Like people already took it out. People like Atlanta herself, she went to the mall, she bought like some cheap clothes. That's what she did. And she blew her money on that, and she blew the bag. It is what it is. I just say you want to.
That is not the topic.
I needed to say that. I
Stick to the topic.
Let you know. So some people, you either you use your student loan for tuition. On top of that, you paid it down for where to live, because not just, you didn't just get this money and just pocket it and walk away. A lot of us used it to rent apartments, buy groceries, live, survive. And some people buy discretionary stuff, but majority of it went into, basically back into the economy. So the idea of this money not being used, it was already used. It was already moved throughout the economy. A lot of people profited and a lot of things changed. Overall, what we find now with the cancellation, it's not money that's going to go back into anybody's bank account. This is money to just seemingly just, cut down your debt completely off the balance. You don't have to do anything for it. But ultimately, what's going to happen is that people who end up, let's say in a year or two, have their entire debt canceled, they're going to be in a position to now push forward, save more, invest more, or even to a point where they buy homes. The buying of homes overall down the line, if there's more people able to buy homes, that creates the imbalance, because it's a supply and demand thing. So the more people that's out there trying to vie for a limited supply of homes or homes in locations that they love, you're going to see the prices of home go back up again. That's why this is where they get the high inflation aspect, because prices do go up, but that's a natural part of it. It's just because more people are going to be in a position to buy more, which is going to spur the economy more. It's going to change inflation, is going to change prices, but it's just part of the recipe and it's part of the math. So I wouldn't necessarily waste too much time trying to think that it's just going to hurt all of us. It's not an influx of money like the stimulus. It's not going into anybody's pockets. It's just a cancellation off the balance. And we could talk about a whole lot of the rest of that more in a couple minutes.
It's also interesting that you mentioned all the layers of how it's going to impact us as an economy. It's already kind of circulated. Like you got the student loan, of course, part of it paid for school, and of course institutions, and circulated that money to do whatever they wanted to. So it's kind of circulated around. But one thing that's been interesting, I will be fully transparent to tell you, I have not done a deep dive enough to know the policy behind it, that they're saying essentially you can ask for a refund if you have been making payments during the pause. The question is let's say you had $50,000 worth of student loans, right? And you've been making payments, which is considered interest-free because the interest has paused. Then you go ahead, you're going to get, let's say, for the sake of simple math, 10,000 of that is going to go ahead and be eliminated. You'll have $40,000 left. But if you've been paying it and you ask for a refund, right, you still owe a certain amount of money. But now, because the payments restarting in January, those are going to activate interest again. Is it wise for everyone to ask for a refund back on the money that they paid? Because now everybody's like, just go ahead and just ask for your refund. You need your money back, and you could have not been making payments. And maybe you get kicked back. Let's say you've been making $200 payments every month. Maybe that's totaled up to 4,000 payments, and you get that kickback. Does it fully make sense for every single person to do that? Because I think right now I'm just seeing it hey, you can go get your payments back, and people are not thinking about the mathematics behind it. I haven't done a deep dive to consider it. Like,
wow, you brought up a great point there. Cause I think, you know, it's one of those things we tried to cover before, but the idea is that with the news dropping and it's being so fresh, there's still a lot of details that the Department of Education has not provided yet, and they were going to be working on. They're going to be dropping in the next month, two, or even all the way to January before the payments restart. We got to give them time because it's a lot of details. It's very layered, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. But you do have to kind of pause, take deep breath, and stop clicking. Stop clicking online, stop trying to find the easiest route. And to your point, Lovely, those people that are just saying, oh, I'm just gonna get my refund, technically you're getting the money, but that means the balance goes back up again, to your point. I think the people that would benefit from this, let's say if you were down, you know, if you were in the 20K range, if you're like in the 20K range and you paid $4 or $5 grand, let's say if you paid $5 grand for the last 2 years or so, and you're down 15, you could get the refund on the $5 grand, and then cancellation, if you are qualified under the Pell Grant section for $20,000, that could go to zero. That to me makes a lot of sense. So if you were in that threshold where it's very close, very razor thin, maybe getting your money back would make sense. But if you have $50,000 and hey, you paid $5 grand and then it's down, and you know that's now you're at 45, and then you're down an additional $20,000. That you're just down at $25,000. You don't have to go run back and get your money. It's not very smart to do that because, like you said, it's going to be interest based off the principal. So that's a whole other conversation. So you really want to slow down, really evaluate what's important to you, what's going to actually happen. If you're in the 10 or 20K range and you qualify, maybe a refund might be in might be in order. But if you're not, I basically say hold off.
Right. I really wanted to bring up that point because I think like what happens with information is that a tweet is not in depth enough. A one-liner quote, payments can be refunded, is not enough. This is, again, the thing that we talk about on the Financial Griot, probably every episode, critical thinking. Critical thinking, thinking through the steps, making sure that things align for you. There's this girl that got blasted. They were like, well, how could you get a refund? Because she has her own business and all this stuff. And then she broke it down. I am not my business. So people need to understand that my business could have grossed $1 million. And if I chose to, like Zuck, for example, does not get paid more than $1 at Facebook, technically in salary, right? Because he has stocks, he has other things. So people need to understand there's so much nuances with finance, and we've been talking about it in the group chat, that if you have an AGI, it's pretty much your adjusted gross income. Right? No, what's the
That's it. That's
AGI.
Yeah. So many damn ones. But essentially, I could have said, let's say I went ahead and had $2.99, right? I mean, let's say I said for every month I made $5,000, but it's adjusted because I've invested in 401k. And if you have a small business, you can invest a whole lot more in your 401k than the average person. You also, depending on what you pay yourself, makes a difference. What the business holds is different. And if it's a corporation, the corporation may hold the accounts with all the monies, but it's not under your name. So people need to understand that there's so much nuances, like with your Schedule C's and your Schedule B's, K's, all these different things that goes along. People need to understand that there's so much nuances with finances and everything else that somebody might be qualifying that might be making. And I think that's what big business always gets in trouble about, is that people don't understand how they are able to sometimes not pay quote unquote taxes, how they're able to kind of get away with a lot of things, but there's a lot of provisions in the law. These are not like, maybe Mr. Trump, people always coming from him. Maybe he's doing some illegal things, but not every business person is doing illegal things. And I say all this to say, it's just like, we have to critically think. We have to understand how when a policy comes out, this information comes out, like Lauren said, we have to give it enough time because they haven't finalized everything. It's not like, okay, they have it on the website, you can go see it right now. They said give them, I believe, until the end of December to kind of flesh out everything. You'll be able to log in, see your information. So please don't bombard the state website. It's not updated yet. They're trying to get all their technologies and back-end stuff together. But I say all this to say, critically think for yourself, understand your numbers, understand how your income plays a role. every time, like, especially like if you're about to buy a home, for example, like as a business owner, sometimes you have to make sure that you tell your accountant, hey, I'm about to try to buy a home next year. So you got to make sure that everything lines up so that I can make the right amount. I'm not going to, there's certain deductions and things like that, that please don't even touch it. Just leave it. I'd rather pay a little bit more this year than typical because I need my AGI to be at a certain level. There's so much that goes into these type of things that I think as a society, as we have like a president that's doing more than we can say that the last president did, specifically in this particular notion of student loans. I'm not talking about in general. I'm talking about in this specific thing about student loans. Joe did what he needed to do.
What? Hey, Joe started this problem though, but continue.
Huh? I mean, yeah, we can. We're not going to talk about the past right now. We're just going to say
we're moving forward.
I see how you're trying to make Joe like a hero out here. He created his own problem. It's like, hey, he created his own crime, and he just jumped in. It's like, I saved you guys.
You know. So, but again, sorry, Atlanta. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we're Lawrence. We're moving forward. We're not talking about the past. We're being present. But no, I was actually gonna mention in regards to the refund. So you guys made some great points about reading the fine print, because actually before the student loan, the massive student loan news came out Wednesday, my sister-in-law told me this almost 2 weeks ago before it happened. She falls under the public service student loan forgiveness, and she's been making payments. She has under $20,000, something like that, and she's been working for the county and the state for quite some time, and been making consecutive payments over 10 years. So when she did apply for the public PSLF, public service loan forgiveness, she qualified for it. Not only did they wipe out her remaining debt, but she received a refund because the caveat to that is because she made 120 consecutive payments and qualified for it. So that's why she received a refund as well. So make sure you are reading the fine print, because I don't think it's automatic. I think in determining on how many payments that you're making, and also what Lawrence was saying, if it actually counts for those as well. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. But my sister-in-law was actually able to receive a refund. But in her case, she was making consecutive payments, and she went over the threshold of over 120 payments. So that's how she was automatically able to receive a refund.
Yeah, this is where it becomes like this 1, 2, then 3. There's a lot of things going on. Everybody's financial situation is different. That's why we talk about personal finance on here. We try to break it down. Everybody's situation with their own student loans and how is they interpreting it, as well as everything is going on. To everybody's point, I guess we have to talk a little bit about the past being like the last, 8 months, or even, around 8 months or so. They have been doing a lot of fixes to the public student loan forgiveness. They're allowing people to now, hey, if you ever work for the service industry, really put in, go on that website, advocate for yourself again, fill in the paperwork, and they're basically going to review your case. Make sure that you've been working for a service-based organization for the amount of time you made the payments, and then they're also going to cancel your stuff. It's almost like two different things. It goes back to the whole 3-part situation. So in the third part that PSLF changes, this is what that component is part of. The idea that if you've worked for services and you had no idea what's going on, and you're making payments for 10 years, 120 consecutive payments in good standing, they're going to cancel out your debt. And to your sister or your sister-in-law's point, is that the payments that you're making that obviously you didn't have to make, they're going to tabulate all that in, and they're going to send your money back. The government is not in the business of trying to screw people over. They're really trying to help people. They created the federal side of the student loans under the request of the public way back in the Obama-Biden administration at the very beginning. That's why even in his speech, he was personally invested in this conversation, because they created the PSLF under the auspices that they wanted to help people. On top of that, those federal loans, or anytime that the federal part is talking about these kind of cancellations, forbearance, they have no bearings in the private loan. So if you're in a company that's like SoFi or whatever it is, or another bank, another lender, like they can't do anything for you in regards to that. That's not what this is. You likely would have to lobby with other people like you that are in the private sector, in the private student loan segment, and try to see if they're also going to follow the same principles, because they're just in there to make money for themselves. The government itself, they took on the Sally Mae, I guess Freddie Mac or something like that, or Sally Mae or somebody else. They took on those student loans, they made them federal. And at that point, anybody that falls under federal, now it falls under, every time the president talks about these type of things, it works out in their best interest. So for the second part, which is very important, which is the target relief for low income families, there's two parts to it in which you have to qualify. One, you have to be a single person making less than $125,000 per year, or a married couple or head of household making $250,000 per year. On top of that, the next set of qualifications is that if you had Pell Grants throughout college, which is a designation you could definitely see on studentaid.gov, you'll find that, and I'll probably look it up while we talk about it a little bit more. If you had the Pell Grants, you could qualify upwards to $20,000 to get canceled. If you didn't have the Pell Grant, it would basically be $10,000 to get canceled. Pell Grant itself is a designation for people that didn't have a lot of money going in, so they know the government doesn't like to redo or rehash things or try to refigure things out. So if you qualified under Pell Grant, basically being low income anyways, they know that's what you were, and that's what you had to struggle with. So they're basically making it fairly simple that if you qualified with the Pell Grant, you have $20,000 cancellation. Automatic, you don't have to do the work. They already have all the documents. They already know, technically they should already know how much money you make, especially if you already filed your taxes for 2021. It's already in there. They're likely going to use your AGI, which they typically use anyways. That is the adjusted gross income that Lovely brought up. It's line 11 on your last tax return. So if your money is a little too high, it comes back down to everything we've been talking about for the last year or so on this podcast, where we've been telling people tax planning really matters. That this is the reason why you want to make sure you take additional care to match or even maximize your 401k, 403b, or 457b to lower your AGI, because those things actually work. Even investing in a traditional IRA also lowers your AGI, as well as the health savings account lowers your AGI. If you're not doing that, you're not taking full advantage of all the government support that you can get, as well as growing your wealth in the back end. So there's a lot to consider here, and it sounds complicated, but ultimately, if you don't make a lot of money and you qualify for Pell Grants, you're upwards to 20K. If you didn't have Pell Grant, you're basically at 10K. That's all it really means. So if whatever amount of student loans you have, they'll knock it out for you. But this is a big caveat, because a lot of people ran with that story as well. If you, for example, had 10 grand worth of student loans and you were qualified under $20,000, it would only cover you up to the 10 grand. So you're not going to get a refund for that cancellation. I know that was a big, like,
that was a big one, right? I'm like, that don't even make sense.
People were clicking it with that money.
That don't even make sense. Critical thinking, people.
No, hey, they know what it is. They're just trying to make sure that, get additional money for what it is, for what it's worth. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that, it's not cancellation and a refund. It's just a cancellation outright. So if you have $30,000 and you qualify for 10, you now have $20,000 worth of student loans. If you had $30,000, you qualify for 20, you now have $10,000 worth of student loans, when they kind of revamp the system. But yet again, it only qualifies for federal loan holders as of July 2022. So if you're trying to jump in on the federal side right now, it's a little too late. They already got you.
Locked in. You also checking on those provisions that the government made for those schools that were literally being very predatory.
For-profit schools.
Yep.
Yeah, those for-profit schools, there's upwards to almost like 40 billion that was already canceled out. And this has been going on ever since, I want to say Obama, I don't remember before that being an issue. I think it was still actually happening, but during Obama's term, after that, during Trump's term, and also now during Biden's term, they've been canceling out student loans for people that were in those predatory schools that really screwed a lot of low-income people over. So that ideally, they've been making that. I always like to stress that it's nonpartisan. When we see the quarterback running and doing the victory lap and we think it is him or it's her, it's not them at all. They're just taking that victory lap because that's just what they do in order to drum up results and votes and so on and so forth. In the end of the day, the American government is working on behalf of the American people. And if the American people are being screwed over, they're basically going to take the wheel on that justice-wise. They're going to also sue those companies and try to get as much of that money back as well. So they're basically making sure that those student loans that you have under them are canceled out. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think for me too, this is great since I qualify for the maximum student loan forgiveness, but I also want to see more results and more of reconstruction when it comes to school and institutions, because tuition and the fees are just too much. That's how we got into this whole mess, right? It's just too much. Once the government took over the loans, it just skyrocketed so many tuitions. And for school shouldn't cost that much when you're trying to get out of poverty or trying to change your circumstances, right? Education has been the way of leading a lot of people out of poverty. And when you can't afford it, there's no other way that you can go about it without taking out student loans. And I just hope that they get to a point where they could come and resolve these issues of how just school is just so expensive, because, someday our children will go to school the next 10, 20 years or so, right? And we don't want them to go through this issue with school just skyrocketing prices and tuition. That's something that the government really have to work on, because it's just a Band-Aid to a bigger issue that a lot of young people are going to suffer from.
Oh, and it got real quiet because Lovey just sitting there like shocked. At the end of the day, I think one of the things that we definitely want to remind people of is that if you want to be notified about all the application changes, all the details, and all the notifications from the Department of Education, you can actually subscribe at ed.gov/subscription, and you have to select the Federal Student Loan Borrowers Update. I'm pretty sure Atlanta's already on there, like some kind of like fiend, like on that news, getting that. Are you gonna get text messages or emails?
I don't know. I'm selecting both.
Like as soon as possible. The moment it happens, as you sleep, you just want to be like, you want to be briefed, like you're in that room, like anytime.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So for people that really want to know, like definitely follow some really vetted sources, because social media is going to be filled with people telling you very outlandish stuff, especially in the moment of desperation, confusion, and lack of information. There's a lot of scammers that are going to come around with this. There's going to be people trying to do classes on this stuff. Some people might be selling courses and books. In the end of the day, you're probably just better off subscribing to the Department of Education. Keep it free for yourself and allow time to process this thing through, because it's going to take them some time to unravel this. And as we get into it, we're likely going to find out more before January 2023 kicks off. So in that moment, there are other provisions that I do want to kind of cover. And this is on the third part, which is just basically federal student loan revamp or so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure they have to call this like a package something at one point, a super name or something. But in this part, they're basically saying that a lot of the payments, the income-based repayments, will actually be considerably lower. So there's going to be no more than 5% of your discretionary income monthly on undergrad loans, down from 10% for the most income driven repayment plans. It's a little odd because I'm not quite sure how they know your personal discretionary income, but I'm pretty sure they're likely going to do this 5% off your AGI, because then I guess in their minds, this is the amount of money after tax that you have in order that you could work with. It's just a little bit math. The math ain't mathing sometimes for the IRS. They're trying to figure it out. But the goal here is to make sure that you have enough money that you can do better things with, save, invest, and even purchase homes and really start families as well. And it additionally says no borrower making under the annual equivalent of 15 minimum wage will have to make a student loan payments. I'm not too sure how that's going to qualify, but I think it's just kind of like the income base. Based on the income, they're just not going to charge you anything for that. That's actually pretty good. And this is one of those provisions that a lot of people just don't know about, or we don't talk about enough. If you make consecutive payments and in good standing with your student loans over 20 years, they always got canceled out. For some reason, people never made it to that point. So that's why they always think it doesn't get canceled out at all. They kind of quit after 5 years. They're like, hey, I haven't paid it, and they're mad. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but they're also making it easier for people to get their loans forgiven, even as early as 10 years. So if you have less than $20,000 or something, or $12,000 or less, and you've been paying for the last 10 years, you're likely going to get it canceled out as well. So I think that generally, I think that generally covers a lot of Black and brown people as well, because we predominantly held way too much of the student loan debt, especially Black women. As much extra credentials in secondary school that Black women are picking up, that's a price tag, at least to some degree, at least what, 50K and more, or even 40K and more, which is way more than national average of like $32,000. So ultimately, this is going to be a great, equaling the playing field for a lot of people, as well as for those 42 million Americans that are struggling with student loans. This is a welcome reprieve, and we welcome it. I know Uncle Dave Ramsey is not too happy. He's really pissed off. He been going ham for the last 3 days. Like every time he get a chance to, he's like, I don't like this debt. I don't like this debt. He's really
the haters
mad.
Are real.
I'm like, why are you mad? I thought the entire thing about being debt free. So for the people that do not qualify for this, or don't really, I guess there's no point to be salty about it, in my opinion, because it's not real cash that people are getting. They're literally getting some balances kind of cut down. Some people already have balances that they've been paying for the last 15 years that balloon due to interest. So the government is not losing no real money from this. Like some people have, like, as basically by the time they finish paying out their student loans, they would have paid for it twice. So if you have $150,000 worth of student loans, you probably have $150,000 worth of interest on top of that. So that's how this thing works. It compounds over time. It's pretty detrimental if you don't pay it down as fast as possible. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So these 10 or 20, it's not the greatest thing, but it's better than zero, that donut. I know some people are even complaining. They wanted the entire thing canceled.
They wanted 50,000.
They wanted 50K in the Tesla. Who knows? But at the end of the day, like, we're just trying to tell people it's better than zero. Take this opportunity, use your cards wisely, and make sure you're managing your money and your time better. That's the only thing I can say to people. Like, I'm benefiting off of this to some degree. Maybe not full cancellation, but it's better than nothing. And I also checked my Pell Grant thing too. I don't know. At one point, I panicked. I was like, I gotta know.
I have to know, even though you know, but you just confirm it. You just have to know. I definitely benefit from this.
Y'all was the one out here blocking the site.
We were contributing.
Like, actually in grad school, I actually needed to log in, and I'm like, dang, my school sent me some stuff. I was like, oh, let me check this out. Can't log in because y'all out here looking for the loan thing. I just need to sign something for my school.
You received 30. Oh, okay. I received over 30, or close to 30,000 of Pell Grants.
Wow, you live 30,000. Oh yeah, but you went to HBCU though. They're really kind of prioritized that.
Yeah,
it was like as much as I ride on HBCUs, I like to joke with Atlanta about it, just because FAMU is that close to FSU. It's actually a great school to be part of, at least watching it from outside in, because there are a lot of additional support that students could get into if you got the right help. Obviously not, hey, I forgot what's your university center, like where you get the student loans from?
Financial aid? What?
Yeah, what's the name of that building? Because that was a terrible building. The financial aid building.
I forgot, but I know what you're talking about though.
Oh yeah, because sometimes they'd be out at lunch. I went there with my buddy. They'd be like, I got lunch right now. I'm like, we're standing right in front of them. They're like, we gone. And then we could see them eating food, like not too far. Like, we're not even trying to help right now. But you can definitely, anybody has access to the Federal Student Aid, or their official website. Office for the Department of Education to support federal student loans. It's at studentaid.gov. And do not go to anything studentloan.com. That's not what it is. Always try to look for that .gov. That's not the scam. That's the actual official thing. And you can find exactly how much student loans, as well as grants that you received over time. And yeah, I had $13,000 in Pell Grants. I'm out here struggling. So I still have my student loans, which is a nice little 88,000 remaining. But a grand.
But with the since you qualify for the 20,000 and plus you're doing a PSLF, since you're a federal employee, you're set, really.
Oh yeah, I'm already good. Like, I have my PSLF ending August 2025. What that's gonna do for me though, let's say if this number goes down to 68,000, instead of my payments being $1,000 a month, it's likely could be $750 or maybe it's around like, even if it's 750, it's saving me 250 per month.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm one of those people. I'm very grateful for what I get, because it doesn't mean it's not. It was never guaranteed. So if it is something that's positive, why not be happy for it?
Yeah, it actually puts me down close to 16 to 17,000 after the 20,000 go down. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know how much my payments would be, but it's better than, $300-400 a month.
Shoot, I paid down a whole bunch of these ones. Like, look at zero balances, net loan, zero balance, Wells Fargo, zero balance, Navient, zero balance. I'm like, Dutch Bank had my loans, Navient, zero balance. I was doing something.
Navient had my loans too, and then they switch over to Advantage or something like that. Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to it.
And then you could also download your My Aid data, because sometimes too, when people don't know, you could also download this stuff. It could help you with getting a home. Sometimes they ask you, hey, what type of like debt do you have? And the quality of that debt, the diversification of that debt. So you want to make sure that you're making fair use of what's available for you out there, with especially what the federal government is giving to you. So
absolutely.
I think we covered a lot of these things. Lovely. You got questions. I know you got questions.
No, I feel like we answered some of the top questions that I see rolling around. The only other thing that I would like to add is, do you guys think that there's going to be any possibility that there will be any more that's done? Or do you really think that this is it? Like Joe said what he said, he gave what he gave. And do you think any other president is going to be held up to the same standard to do something about the student loan crisis?
I actually don't think so. I think it's fairly not necessarily popular all around. There are there's only 42% of Americans went to college. It's a large amount for sure, but it's not necessarily the full totality. And those other people that didn't go, and especially some that paid their stuff off, so on and so forth, a lot of people find it, quite frankly, unfair. And they're entitled to their opinion. I'm not gonna be, that kind of person and think I can't hear them or understand them. I think they're entitled to it. I think they've put in that work. It makes sense. So I don't think this is very popular. And I will also say down the line, we'll find a lot of people not do or take this route. I think this was a unique time to do it, because of the whole pandemic, because we were already in this forbearance that were sponsored by both parties. We were in a catch-22 of trying to make some level of reform that could be seismic in the long-term prospect of the US. It's not crazy enough. It's not a full debt forgiveness, which is like what the full US debt forgiveness would have been $1.6 trillion. This is a lot. I think it's like 300 billion or something like that, or estimated around that. It's not a crazy amount, but it's enough to kind of like really motivate people to get on with their life, move forward, do stuff, get out there, get homes, start families. It's psychological more than anything else. And I would have said it's probably better to just cap the interest. I think that's the biggest problem that people have. If you capped it at 3%, at the very least, you're doing something unilaterally from now until years from now. But now you also find people in school right now, they're going to be mad about the fact that the last generation got the 10 or whatever K. So we're gonna hear about this for years to come. But this is already said and done. Constitutional or not, it's already in the process.
Okay.
I think more people are in grassroots who have started this entire movement for student loan debt cancellation. I think one of their other components is moving towards lowering tuition costs as well, putting more pressure on the government on changing the entire infrastructure system. That's how we got into this issue now as millennials, because the interest in the tuition fees, the bloat, what Lawrence called the fees and administration fees, just too much to go to school. It's not an equal playing field, because if you are a first generation student, or if your parents did not go to college, you don't know many people have, you're taking out more student loans than you can, because you're offsetting the cost of living aside from tuition, right? So there's a lot of components to this, and moving forward, we want to have an equal playing field, and you can't make everyone happy. This is America. We're not a homogeneous society. You just can't make everyone happy. But the fact is that the entire system, educational system, it's not structured in a way where not only is predatory to a lot of school, a lot of students from for-profit organization that are continuously doing these things, but as well as the tuition is just too high to go to school. To get a bachelor's degree, you're paying like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for tuition, and you got to go to school for 4 years. So it's a lot of things I think the grassroots movement is going to advocate for and put more pressure on the government to do these things, because it took over 10 years for us to get to this point of debt cancellation for massive amount of people who were paying their debt and didn't see any improvements because of massive amount of interest. That doesn't make any sense. If I have 20 grand a student loan and I'm making 5 or 6 years of payments, and now I have more of the student loan because of interest. How fair is that? Right? We're trying to do our part. I think most Americans are trying to do their part. But if the government is not meeting us where we are, or trying to place a different structure for the education system, then we're going to continuously having this, maybe even more, right? But I'm happy that most of us are getting relief and most of us are eligible. But I do want the government to do more in terms of the system, and I think it will happen in our lifetime, that tuition just had to decrease. It's too much.
Yeah, one of those persons that have been doing a lot for this entire thing has been Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's been, advocating for this for the last 30 years. That's been the biggest part of her book, The Two-Income Trap. She's known about it. She's been pushing for it. She was trying to get the $50,000 because it'd been more significant to Black and Brown communities. She understands the plight even at a micro level. There are research papers on this. They're available on Google. Do a Boolean search and you will find it. And on top of that, I would say, even for myself, if I made $40,000 worth of payments the last 5 years in regards to student loans, probably $40,000 went to interest. That's how crazy it gets. You literally get to hold on to the debt, and the amount that goes to the principal is so minute, it's insane. This is why it's important for people to understand amortization tables. They need to also understand, the best way to kind of mitigate student loan problems is to actually not get into them. So one of the rules that we heard multiple times on the Money Guy show, they said it, and I thought it was a great idea, is that you want to cap off your total student loan balance to your first year's salary. So if your first year salary at a job is only going to be 30K, then your student loan should be no more than 30K. So if it's going to be 100K, then your student loans should be no more than 100K. You want to keep it as low as possible. But I think ultimately that's the idea that you want to get into, because a lot of people are just, ramping up, getting student loans. We've seen people, recently, I think there was a lady who had like $400,000 worth of student loans or something. Some people are getting $200,000, like going to private universities like Barry University in Miami. It's insane.
Yeah, I don't even think that story, she's like even a doctor or a lawyer, one of those high-paying positions. I think it was like having a PhD, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's a lot of people grabbing onto this thing. So if you want to really kind of make that dent for yourself, which is it's outside the government, it's outside the system per se, you have to start deciding from the front end, what are you going to school for? How long are you going to be there? Especially at FSU, we have a problem with Black males. The graduation rate, if they graduate at all, the time frame is around 6 years, if not almost 7 years now. So Instead of the 4 years, we're actually extending our tenure at these schools, which are creating more costs for us. We're not getting to the point, quote unquote, getting to the bag or getting to our income, because we're just stuck. Stuck literally at school. So we need to do a better job as a community, gearing kids to understand that this is an important step, and the consideration not to force people to do a specific major. As more like, I think in my school, they had like the first year, you could almost have like a exploratory year, where you obviously the first year or two of college themselves is kind of like the same as the associate degrees. Yeah. So you're basically like, you could literally take your time before jumping into a major and deciding what's going to be your path.
We have to push for community college as well. It doesn't make you any lesser than to go to community college. My sister graduated with her bachelor's with her bachelor with no debt, simply because she started her collegiate year at a community college. And within that same few years into her degree, they changed the community college into a state college here in West Palm Beach. So she graduated with no debt because she was going to school as well as having a full-time job. So a lot of her Pell Grants cover her tuition, right? Her in-state tuition. So we have to start advocating for community college. Doesn't make you lesser than. You don't miss out on much. Trust me, you don't. And it saves a lot of money. If you're unsure of the career choice or unsure what you really want to do, then it's a great time to, stay at home, work, look at other opportunities, intern, go to school, get your associate degree, and trying to figure out what would you like to do or continue to do. And sometimes, depending on your degree choice of your associate, you can kind of explore other things too while you're still working, right? So it's something that we just have to advocate in our community, because I remember the pressure. I was really thinking about going to community college. I just remember the pressure of everyone around me going off to college. I wanted to go off to college, but in retrospect, I wasn't really truly ready for college in terms of the financials, right? And I was unsure what I wanted to do, which I was one of the people that I didn't graduate the traditional 4 years, right? I took a little bit longer because I was changing my major. So I think in terms of community, we have to be transparent to the generation that's coming after us, to say that, okay, this is what I've done, and I want you to choose a little bit differently and be a little bit more smarter in choosing a career, but also knowing what you want to do. Because if you're unsure by the time you're in the junior year, sophomore, junior, community college is not a bad choice, and it's right there. And also just guiding children, and also just showing them that, most states here in Florida, you can take AP classes that also transfer into college courses as well. So that save a lot of money for parents, as well as time for students that don't have to be in school as much or take specific classes, right? They call it dual enrollment. So we have to be transparent to our children, have to be transparent to students, so they can prevent making the same mistakes that we did. It was like a guidance. It wasn't just knowledge. It was just like a guidance. We didn't know, or we just didn't know how to navigate the system, right? Or offset a lot of our expenditures, living amongst everyone else. So we have to kind of put this thing into perspective so it can prevent all these other issues that we have now. But it was a great conversation. I'm so happy that we got to this point. Finally, Joe, we did it. We did it, Joe.
We did it,
Finally,
Joe. You sound like
that's
Kamala.
The title.
You sound like
title.
Kamala. We did it, Joe.
That's the title of this episode. We did it, Joe.
We did it, Joe.
So
where's Kamala with all this? I haven't seen. I need to.
She's in the background. She's calling.
She need to dance, man. She need to do a TikTok challenge or something at this point. I haven't seen her a bit. I'm kind of worried sometimes. Like, where's Kamala? Like, nobody's calling about that.
Yeah, she's somewhere still advocating for us in some form.
We're definitely gonna. Over time, we definitely want to do an episode about, how to prepare for kids for college. I think that's going to be a point in time where a lot of millennials are not having kids. Congrats to Clee. He finally knows that it's a boy. It's a boy. We finally found out yesterday. So, and he also said, hey, you guys did a recording on this or something like that, because he wants to see if we go back to listen to his options, and maybe I kind of bring him in and we have a full-on conversation, because it's going to be a little bit more detailed than just saying, hey, throw it in the 529 plan. You have to be a little bit more clairvoyant, because the amount of money that it's going to take for a 4-year degree by 2040, by the time these kids are going to school, is going to be nearly $100,000 per year. Based on this rate of inflation, how things are going, there's a lot of administrative bloat that we don't talk about. It's in there, and we need to prepare a lot better and smartly in regards to how we kind of navigate our own personal finances, our kids' finances, and how we get engaged as a community in helping each other out, because it's going to matter at some point. So with that said, for myself, I think we kind of covered a lot. I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be like, hey, if you have questions, please feel free to email us, contact us, DM us, tweet us, and challenge us on these positions as well. If you feel that, hey, we didn't cover this, or we need a little bit more of a dive, we could do even a part 2 on it, because it's a lot of information, and there's going to be more information coming out through it. Because I think, for me, like I said, the people that aren't using the tax planning, you're missing out. and I'm gonna let other people do what they do, but you can find me at the Neighborhood Finance Guy. And I'm gonna pass it over to Atlanta because she wants to talk about other things. Pressure on you.
No, I was saying, if you guys have any other thoughts and everything about the student debt cancellation, just email us. We do have an email handle, Financial Griotis at gmail.com. I'll place it in the show notes. Email us your thoughts, perspective. If you don't agree to this, a lot of people do not agree to this because maybe you did pay off your student loans and you don't think it's equal or it's fair. But what do you feel about the standing and established educational system? Are we going to go through this again the next 10 years or so for the next generation? So just, let us know your thoughts, but you can find me on IG streets at Atlanta_Elson. Thank you guys so much. What about you, Lovely?
This was a great episode. I hope that you learned something. And of course, we're always available to answer any questions or any thoughts. You can find me on anywhere, all the platforms, all the channels at Lovely Mordellis. Thank you for listening to the Financial Griotis podcast, powered by the Wealth Builders Collective.